Hey everyone, and welcome back. Today we're diving into a book I'm sure many of you have heard of, Start With Why, by Simon Sinek.
A classic. It's really resonated with a lot of people, and for good reason, I think.
I think so too, and you've sent over some really fascinating excerpts, so I'm excited to really dig into this one.
Yeah, me too. It's a book that, well, it really gets at something so fundamental about why we do what we do.
It really does. Even before I read it, I always felt like there was something more to success than just, I don't know, having a great product or service.
Oh, absolutely. It goes so much deeper than that. Cynic really hits on this idea that we're not just rational beings. We make decisions based on emotion, and then we find ways to justify them with logic later.
Right. Like, we all like to think we're making these calculated choices, but really a lot of it comes down to gut feeling, doesn't it?
Totally. It's like, why do you choose one brand over another? Often it's because you connect with their story, their values, their WHY.
Okay, so let's talk about that. The WHY, this is at the heart of Sinek's Golden Circle, right?
It's exactly the golden circle. It's this framework that explains how the most inspiring leaders and organizations think, act, and communicate.
So most companies, they communicate from the outside in what they do, how they do it, and maybe, if you're lucky, why they do it.
But the ones that really stand out, the game changers, they reverse it. They start with WHY.
Okay, so break this down for me. What does it actually look like to start with why?
Well, it all starts with understanding your purpose. Your WHY is your belief, your cause, the reason you get out of bed in the morning. It's the driving force behind everything you do.
So in a business context, it's like it's bigger than just your product or services, right? It's like the soul of your company.
You got it. It's your company's reason for being.
Okay, so give me an example. How about a company like Apple? I mean, everyone knows Apple.
Perfect example. Apple, they don't lead with, we make great computers or we have the best phones.
Yeah, like we're tech geniuses, right?
Yep. Right. Instead, they've always tapped into something deeper. Their WHY is about challenging the status quo, about empowering the individual through technology. Their products are just the tangible expression of that belief.
That's such a good point. I never thought about it that way, but it makes so much sense. People don't just buy what you do, they buy why you do it.
Exactly. And when you can connect with people on that level, when you can tap into their emotions and values, that's where real loyalty is built.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so another example that comes to mind is Harley-Davidson. What they sell is so much more than just motorcycles, right?
You nailed it. Harley, they've built this whole brand around a feeling, a lifestyle. It's about freedom, rebellion, brotherhood.
Yeah, it's almost like a tribe or something, right?
Exactly. People aren't just buying a bike, they're buying into a set of ideals and identity. That's powerful stuff.
So it's not enough to just say, okay, this is our WHY. You have to really believe it, and it has to be reflected in everything you do.
100%. Authenticity is key here. People can spot a fake from a mile away. If your WHY isn't genuine, if it doesn't permeate everything you do, it's just empty words.
So how do you even uncover your WHY? It seems kind of, I don't know, intangible. Like, how do you put it into words?
It's a great question, and it starts with, honestly, with a lot of introspection. Sinek talks about asking yourself some really tough questions.
Like what?
Like, what truly motivates you? What gets you out of bed in the morning? What are you most passionate about?
So it's about identifying those things that give you energy, that light you up.
Exactly. It's about finding the patterns in your life. What kind of work has always felt more like play? What activities make you come alive? What are your values? What impact do you want to have on the world?
It's like that saying, do what you love and you'll never work a day in your life.
Right. But it's more than that. It's about finding that sweet spot where your passion intersects with the need in the world. That's where things get really powerful. It's about, like you said, finding that place where your passion meets a need in the world.
And then I guess the trick is, how do you build something around that? How do you actually turn that WHY into a company, a movement, something that really makes a difference?
Well, Sinek gives this amazing example of Ernest Shackleton, the explorer.
Oh, yeah, the Antarctic expedition, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So Shackleton was putting together this really dangerous expedition to Antarctica, and he needed to find the right people for the job, right?
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about some pretty extreme conditions. It wasn't exactly a walk in the park.
Not at all. So instead of listing out like qualifications or experience in his ad, Shackleton went for something a little different.
Oh, I remember this skid. What did it say again?
Okay, so get this, it said, men wanted for hazardous journey, small wages, bitter cold, long months of complete darkness, constant danger, safe return doubtful, honor and recognition in case of success.
Wow. Talk about cutting to the chase.
Right. I mean, he's basically saying, if you're looking for a cushy job, this ain't it.
But it worked, right? He found people who were up for the challenge.
Oh, yeah, totally works because he was very clear about his WHY, this incredibly ambitious, maybe even crazy mission to cross Antarctica. And he only wanted people who were driven by that same WHY, who understood the risks and were willing to face them head on.
It's like he was screening for a shared sense of adventure, for people who were okay with, like, the possibility of failure, but were still drawn to something bigger than themselves.
Exactly. And that shared WHY, that sense of purpose, that's probably what got them through those incredibly difficult circumstances. Because, spoiler alert, the expedition didn't quite go as planned.
It didn't. What happened?
Well, their ship got stuck in the ice and eventually crushed. They were stranded on the ice for months.
Oh, wow. I mean, that takes the concept of hazardous journey to a whole new level.
Right. But they all survived. And I think a big part of that was that they had this shared WHY, this incredible bond that helped them persevere.
That's really amazing. So, okay, bringing it back to, like, a more day-to-day scenario. Let's say you're a business owner, you've figured out your WHY, you've maybe even started to attract the right people to your team. How do you keep that WHY front and center, especially as the business grows and, things get busy?
That's where the discipline comes in. The day-to-day can easily take over. You get caught up in hitting those deadlines, closing deals, all of that.
The why, right, the day-to-day stuff.
Exactly. But the WHY, that has to remain your compass. It needs to guide every decision you make, every new hire, every product you develop.
It's more than just having a mission statement hanging on the wall.
Right, more. It needs to be woven into the fabric of your company culture, into the way you communicate, the way you treat your employees, everything.
It's like the WHY is the soul, but you need the how, right? The actual steps you take, the systems you put in place to bring that WHY to life.
Absolutely. And that's where the HLW comes into the golden circle. So you've got your WHY, that deep-seated purpose, and then you have the HRW, the actions you take, the process you put in place to actually bring that WHY to life.
Okay, so can you do me an example here?
Sure, think about it like building a house. Your WHY is the foundation, right? The reason you're building it in the first place, maybe it's to create a loving and secure home for your family. The HLW is the actual building process, the materials you use, the design you choose, the people you hire to help you build it.
And then what would be the actual house itself?
Exactly, the tangible result of all your efforts.
So if the foundation, the WHY, isn't strong, the whole house is at risk.
Exactly. You can have the best builders, the highest quality materials, but if the foundation isn't solid, the house will crumble.
It's the same with companies. If the WHY isn't clear and strong, the company is likely to falter. So how do you avoid that? How do you make sure you're staying true to your WHY, especially as your company grows and evolves?
It's a great question. And Sinek actually talks about this thing called the split. It's that moment when a company starts to prioritize the what over the WHY.
Like, they get so caught up in what they do that they lose sight of why they're doing it in the first place.
Exactly. Maybe they're chasing profits at the expense of their values. Or maybe they get so focused on growth and expansion that they forget about the people who helped them get there in the first place.
We were talking about Walmart earlier. It feels like that could be a good example of this split, right?
Yeah, it definitely could be. Sam Walton, the founder, he had a very clear WHY, serving rural communities by offering everyday low prices. It was a powerful WHY, and it really resonated with people. But as the company grew, somewhere along the line, that WHY seemed to fade into the background.
And they started getting a lot of criticism for their labor practices, their impact on local communities.
Right, and it starts to feel like a disconnect,
Yes.
right? Like their actions aren't aligning with their original WHY anymore.
So how do you avoid that? How do companies stay true to their WHY even as they become successful?
Well, I think leadership plays a huge role. You need leaders who really embody the WHY, who live and breathe it.
So they're not just CEOs, they're like walking, talking embodiments of the company's WHY.
Exactly. They're constantly reminding everyone, this is why we do what we do. And more importantly, their actions are aligned with those words. They set the tone for the entire organization. Think about someone like Herb Kelleher, the co-founder of Southwest Airlines.
Oh, yeah. He was known for being a pretty unconventional CEO, right?
Totally. But at the heart of it, he really understood Southwest's WHY, making air travel affordable for everyone.
And he wasn't afraid to let that WHY guide every decision the company made.
Exactly. He knew that if they stayed true to that WHY, the profits would follow. And they did. Southwest has been profitable for decades.
Yeah, that's pretty impressive. Okay, so as we wrap up our deep dive here, what's the one thing you hope our listeners take away from Start With Why?
That's a good question. I think the biggest takeaway for me is that understanding your WHY, whether you're an entrepreneur, an artist, or just trying to figure out what you want to do with your life, it's essential. It gives you this clarity, this sense of purpose that can really fuel your success.
It's about more than just making a living. It's about making a difference.
Exactly. And it doesn't have to be something huge, right? It's about finding that thing that lights you up, that makes you feel like you're contributing something meaningful to the world.
And then having the courage to go after it, even if it's scary.
100%.
Yeah.
Because the world needs people who are passionate, who are driven by something more than just the bottom line.
It needs people who are willing to challenge the status quo, to think differently, and to inspire others to do the same.
Exactly. And that all starts with understanding your WHY.
I love that. This has been an amazing conversation. Thank you so much for walking us through Start With Why.
My pleasure. It's always fun to talk about this stuff.
And for everyone listening, keep asking yourself, why? Why do you do what you do? What impact do you want to make on the world? Because when you start with why, anything is possible. That's it for our deep dive into Start With Why. We hope you found it insightful and inspiring. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep making a difference.